So we're gonna pull up the verses here. You wanna read them? I think we'll read them.
I was thinking, yeah, we'll have everybody in the room read 20 through 24, and then we're gonna touch on 20. I know, Shruti, you asked us to touch on 24. It's very long. It's like 2.5 pages long. And 20 is shorter, and I got a couple notes on that to help us segue to what we have to present. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
One who has not listened to the messages about the prowess and marvelous acts of the personality of God, and has not sung or chanted loudly the worthy songs about the Lord, is to be considered to possess ear holes like the holes of snakes, and a tongue like the tongue of God.
The upper portion of the body, though crowned with a silk turban, is only a heavy burden if not bowed down before the personality of Godhead, who can award mukti, freedom. And the hands, though decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man, not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead for me.
The author should not look at small representations of the personality of Godhead Krishna, his forms, name, quality, etc., are like those printed on the feet of God, the legs which do not move to holy places where the Lord is returned, considered like free drugs.
The person who has not at any time received the blessing of the Lord purely was the person, certainly a dead body. The person who has never experienced the will to exist from the Holy Spirit is also a dead body.
Certainly, that heart is still framed, which, in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, does not change when ecstasy takes place. Tears fill the eyes, and the hairs stand on them.
You want to start? Yeah. So maybe we can have 2 readers for the translation for the purport.
Do you want to do Sanskrit or?
No, because I don't know, I feel like just want to touch on any kind of we got a lot to cover. That's okay with everybody.
No responses? Good. Okay. Someone want to read the reports? Okay.
Right here. Let me sit back here because the rest of them sometimes that up there. Devotional service to the Lord is rendered by all limbs or parts of the body. It is the transcendental dynamic force of the spirit soul. Therefore, a devotee is engaged 100% in the service of the Lord. One engaged in devotional service when the senses of the body are purified. One can render service to the Lord with the help of all the senses. As such, the senses and actions of the senses are to be considered impure or materialistic as long as they are employed in sense gratification. The purified senses are engaged not in sense gratification, but in the service of the Lord and so. The Lord is the supreme with all senses, and the servitor, who is part and parcel of the Lord, also has the same senses. Service to the Lord is the completely purified use of the senses. As described in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord imparted instructions with full senses, and Arjuna received them with full senses, and thus there is a perfect exchange of sensible and logical understanding between the master and the disciple. Spiritual understanding is nothing like an electrical charge from the master to the disciple, as foolishly claimed by some of the propaganda mongers. Everything is full of sense and logic. The exchange of between master and disciple is possible only when the reception is submissive. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that one should receive the teachings of Lord Chaitanya with intellect and full senses, so that one can logically understand the great mission.
In the impure state of a living being, the senses are fully engaged in their affairs. If the ear is not engaged in the service of the Lord by hearing about him, it would be actually powerful. Certainly the holes of the ear will be filled with some rubbish. Therefore, the messages of Bhagavatam should be preached all over the world very loudly. That is the duty of the pure devotee who has actually heard about them from perfect sources. Many want to speak something to others, but because they are not trained to speak on the subject matter of Vedic wisdom, they are all speaking nonsense. People are receiving them with no sense. There are hundreds and thousands of sources for distributing the main news of the world, and people will.
Similarly, the people of the world should be taught to hear the transcendental topics of the Lord, and the devotee of the Lord must speak loudly so that they can hear. The frogs loudly croak, with the result that they invite the snakes to eat them. The human tongue is especially given for chanting the Vedic hymns and not for croaking like frogs. The word asati used in this verse is also significant. Asati means a woman who has become a prostitute. A prostitute has no reputation for good womanly qualities. Similarly, the tongue, which is given to the human being for chanting the Vedic hymns, will be considered a prostitute when engaged in chanting some mundane nonsense.
All right. So, feel like in this purport and even the last ones that we studied yesterday, Srila Prabhupada's using some strong language. And I see that he tends to do that. Like even in a few chapters ago, he had said, if one is to hear Vaishnava villainized, you rather kill yourself or cut your tongue out or walk away. Those are really strong, words, and I don't believe that they're to be taken literally. But that's his style of preaching sometimes to drive home how important this is, and sometimes he can get a little brimstone and fire, and maybe it might turn people off a little bit. I've seen it happen in class, but if you just understand that he's just making a strong point that Vedic knowledge and chanting the Maha Mantra is the most important thing that we can fill our minds with and that we can speak. That's what this is trying to say. That we all have senses, we have six senses, and that we're going to want to engage them in things in the material world. They are just naturally going to want to find things to be plugged into and to gratify them. And we can be driven around by what the media and the news and television and music says that we should try to seek out and find, or it says that we can use them in the service of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada said, in this movement, we are not telling you to deny all the senses and to not have sense gratification, but to use it in the service of Krishna. That is Krishna consciousness. So, yeah, I think we're going to get into some different ways of the process towards devotional service and how to do some of those things. But I just said, thought of a very practical example that I feel like people can relate to, of like filling your head with nonsensical things. Is like watching a movie marathon. If you've ever done that late at night and like watch the trilogy of like, RoboCop 1, 2, and 3, Terminator 1, 2, and 3. One time I watched the Three Ninjas. There's three of those. I don't know if you guys remember them. They're awful. And I had a headache afterwards. And yeah, I literally have no takeaways, nothing productive. That didn't add anything productive into my life. And but yeah, if I felt like listening to lectures and listening to kirtan, it definitely brings you a little bit more peace of mind. Um, and then, yeah, even as far as the music I listen to, I definitely feel a change in mood depending on what, I'm meditating on. Sometimes music, I listen to is different kinds of meditations, and yeah, I can get into different modes very easily. So I don't want to have a prostitute tongue, listen to Jay-Z, and um, yeah, just be better, man. That he's just saying that best thing we could do is listen to Srimad Bhagavatam, read Srimad Bhagavatam, chant the holy names, and that way we'll have our senses purified in order to be able to even engage in devotional service to the Lord. So you gotta get into it first. So that's what I wanted to share on that. And please do not be discouraged by Srila Prabhupada's strong choices in words, um, because he just wants us to take this very seriously because he knows it's life or death. He knows it's liberation or, um, you know, you're going to be held back. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about devotional service to the Lord. And I really, really like this word he used. He said, devotional service to the Lord is rendered by all limbs or parts of the body. It is the transcendental dynamic force of the spirit soul. And I just love that word dynamic. And I looked it up, and it means a force or factor that controls or influences a process of growth, change, interaction, or activity. So, but if you render all of your limbs into the service of the Lord, you can actually cultivate change in your life, growth in your life, and you can interact with the Lord, and you can interact with Him in His activities. Literally says this. And I was thinking, yeah, how do I like one time this last week I was reflecting on using my body, all my limbs in service of the Lord, as I was getting ready to go to bed. I'm like, dude, my body is so tired and hurt and sore. And I was like, why? My calves hurt. I've been jumping up and down in the morning, praising the Lord. My back hurts. I've been changing out the trays for the Lord's food. My hands hurt. Yeah, because I've been, washing dishes with it. And my neck hurts because I've been sleeping on the mattress in the Lord's house. And I felt so happy about that, that these aches and pains are not in vain. They are for a higher purpose. So that was the realization I had. And yeah, does anybody has anything on that before we move on to the next part? Shruti?
And this made me think of how Chaitanya says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says that I'm the gardener and I have these fruits of love of God. And said that I'm the only gardener, I'm the only distributor. Nobody else has. Like, please take and share this food. And so I remember a lecture by Rahat Maharaj. He was saying that yeah, when we take on the anxieties of Lord Chaitanya by sharing Krishna consciousness, then he takes on our anxieties. And so just when you made that point that how your various body parts are hurting, but your perspective, I appreciate your perspective. It's nice to think of how the many pains that one has, if it's in service, then in that sense it's glorious. Of course, it doesn't mean that one always has to be in pain in devotional service. If you're not in pain, you're not doing devotional
That's right.
service, because
That's my motto.
But at the same time, it's nice to, because the body and the mind will often be in pain in this life, but it's glorious when it's done for a higher purpose.
Haribo. Gopi?
Jonathan, that was a beautiful section of the class. And you started in the beginning by saying, apologies, I'm not the most qualified Vedic scholar or whatever, but at the end of the day, just by doing menial service here in the temple, have realizations, which is Vigyan. It's higher than knowledge, it's higher than Gyan. Vigyan means realized knowledge. So Krishna is giving you lots of realizations in your heart, and therefore you can speak with real bhakti. So yeah, thank you for that section of the class.
Thank you, Gopi. I love you. Also, hi, Mom. She's probably gonna chime in on the chat too. She probably have a question. So keep your eyes on that.
So this is a good segue. Jonathan is basically Maharaj Ambarisha, as we will see here. Second, if we could get back to the correct slide. Oh, this is the quote from Ganivir Goswami's book. It's actually from Srimad Bhagavatam. Does anyone want to read it? Glorifying Prabhupada. Great opportunity. Go ahead.
We think that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as captain of the ship for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of a human being.
Amazing. Thank you. So Prabhupada brought us all this knowledge from India. That's why we love him so much. It's just like the love Jonathan shares for Gopi. I want to just show you guys a quick excerpt from Bhagavatam 4th Canto that kind of touches on Jonathan's point here about how we can engage in the service of the Lord. Because if we look at these verses again, you know, it's talking about parts of the body. Listen to the messages. You know, it's not sung about or chanted loudly. You know, if not bowed down with your head, all these things that we could do with our body. So the person that has not done these things with their body, that's putting it in like the negative sense. If we put it in the affirmative sense, it's the person who has at any time received the dust of the lotus feet, of the dust of the feet of the Lord's pure devotee upon his head, is certainly a living body. And the person who has experienced the aroma of the tulsi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a living body while breathing. So we can understand both sides of that. If you're not doing it, you're basically a dead body. If you're doing it, then you are truly living. So Maharaj Ambarish was a perfect example of this, as we could see in the purport here, second paragraph. Who wants to read this purport? Gopi, go ahead.
Life of Maharaj Ambarish, we find that the great Maharaja first engaged his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. In this way, his intelligence became purified. Maharaja Ambarisha also used his other senses in the service of the Lord. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity in the temple nicely decorated with flowers. He engaged his sense of smell by smelling the flowers, and he engaged his legs by walking to the temple. His hands were engaged in cleansing the temple, and his ears were engaged in hearing about Krishna. His tongue was engaged in two ways, in speaking about Krishna and in tasting prasada, offered to the deity. Materialistic persons who are under the full control of material intelligence cannot perform all these activities. Thus, consciously or unconsciously, they become entangled by the dictations of material intelligence. This fact is summarized in the following verse.
So Maharaj Ambarish, he was truly living because he was engaging all of his senses from his head down to his feet in serving the lotus feet of the Lord. And so we should understand that this is the ultimate activity. This is the ultimate engagement. If we're engaged in anything else that has nothing to do with devotional service to the Lord, we're kidding ourselves. We don't know what time we're going to die. It's not, we don't know what time that's predetermined for. We don't know if we're cutting that short. We don't know if we'll get extra time or on borrowed time right now. So if we're engaged 100% in the service of the Lord, we don't have to worry about death, because whenever it comes, which it will, we don't need to worry about it, because the Lord will protect us, as he says in Bhagavad Gita 8th chapter. I'll protect you, don't worry. So an intelligent person who truly wants to attain the purpose of life, understand what's the goal of life, and then engage in that goal, not just keep it as theory, would question, what can I do? You know, I might have a job, I have Krishna lunch. I can't be 100% just looking at the deity all day. I can't 100% just be sitting chanting japa all day. How can I engage myself as much as possible, if not all the time? And this is answered in the Nectar of Instruction, processes of devotional service, which are 9 in number. Does anyone want to read them for the folks at home? Kiara?
Hearing the name and glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, chanting his glories, remembering the Lord, serving the Lord's feet, worshiping the deity, offering obeisances unto the Lord, acting as the Lord's servant, making friends with the Lord, surrendering oneself fully to the Lord, and Shravanam or hearing is the first step in acquiring transcendental knowledge.
Amazing. I'm purified already just by that reading. So these are the 9 processes of devotional service. One can practically see if you worship the deity, you offer obeisance to the Lord, you're paying respects, you're praying to the Lord, you're acting as his servant. That could be at Krishna lunch, that could be at your job, that could be with your family. You're acting as a servant because you see everybody as part and parcel of God. You understand everybody has the super soul inside them. Everybody's part and parcel of Krishna. So these are the processes of devotional service. And one may then ask, the next question would be, what's the benefit? What do I stand to gain by doing all this? Like, instead of watching TV on a Friday night, you can tell I get to look at this deity form of the Lord. What's in it for me? WIIFM, right? So in Nectar of Devotion and sales, you always want to make sure you're turned in, or your client is turned into. So in sales, there's a saying, WIIFM. Make sure you're always tuned into that radio station. What's in it for me? So of course we want to know, like, if I'm going to surrender my whole life to God, what do I get out of this whole deal? So Nectar of Devotion gives us a nice opportunity to understand the benefit of performing these devotional activities. If I could find it, Nate, can you do Control F and just say expecting? No, expecting. Okay, there we go. So expecting the Lord's mercy. Someone want to read this section? Someone hasn't gone? Rita, go ahead.
In the 10th canto, 14th. Okay. In the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse 8, it is said, "My dear Lord, any person who is constantly awaiting your causeless mercy to be bestowed upon him, and who goes on suffering the resultant actions of his past misdeeds, offering you respectful obeisances from the core of his heart, is surely eligible to become liberated, for it has become his rightful claim." This, you want me to?
Yes, please.
This statement of Srimad Bhagavatam should be the guide of all devotees. A devotee should not expect immediate relief from the reactions of his past misdeeds. No conditioned soul is free from such reactionary experiences, because material existence means continued suffering or enjoying of past activities. If one has finished his material activities, then there is no more birth. This is possible only when one begins Krishna conscious activities, because such activities do not produce reaction. Therefore, as soon as one becomes perfect in Krishna conscious activities, he is not going to take birth again in the material world. A devotee who is not perfectly freed from the resultant actions should therefore continue to act in Krishna consciousness seriously, even though there may be so many impediments. When such impediments arise, he should simply think of Krishna and expect his mercy. That is the only solace. If the devotee passes his days in that spirit, it is certain that he is going to be promoted to the abode of the Lord. By such activities, he earns his claim to enter into the kingdom of God. The exact word being used in this verse is Zayabak, or the exact word used in this verse is Zayabak, refers to a son's becoming the lawful inheritor of the property of the father. In a similar way, a pure devotee who is prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulations in executing Krishna conscious duties becomes lawfully qualified to.
That was great. Thank you so much. So we can see here that you go into the transcendental abode, you don't have to take birth anymore. This might not be very clear yet, but show of hands, who's ever been sick before? Who's ever had a cold? Who's ever had a fever? Okay, who's ever had to go to the hospital, urgent care, broken a bone, had to have some kind of surgery, anything like that, sprained an ankle? Sucks, right? No one enjoys that. No one enjoys any of the processes. We're all somewhat younger human beings, so we haven't dealt with so much of old age yet and the pangs of getting old, but it's coming for us. We don't want to deal with that. We don't want to get cancer. We don't want to, we don't want to have some terminal illness that just completely destroys the rest of our lives. Nobody wants that. So by engaging in the devotional processes of devotion, engaging in the processes of devotional service or in bhakti, we can get out of that cycle, because even if you're super rich, you're super attractive, you're super educated, you're super famous, you got all the opulences in the whole entire world, that can end like that. One day, you don't even know when it's coming. You could die. You just made $1 million sale and you could die before you even get to spend the money, right? So there's no long-term hold. There's no long-term gain from anything material. Whereas in the spiritual world, we're told here that we can get out of that whole samsara, the cycle of birth and death. One way that I like to keep in mind that keeps me motivated to want to get back to Vaikuntha, back to the spiritual world, is the concept of desire trees. You know, when we talk about Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha, we sing that prayer. We're talking about how the devotees can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees. And, you know, if you think about what a desire tree is, it's a tree that grants you all your desires. So in the material world, if you want to have a nice sumptuous meal, you want to invite all your friends and family over and have a nice big feast, you got to go work for that. You got to go to your job for 8 hours a day, make good money. You got to budget, make sure you have enough for all this feast. You got to cook the dang food when you get home from your 8-hour job. Like, it's exhausting. There's so much work that goes into it. And then your uncle complains that it's too heavily salted and it's not hot enough. And all these problems, right? And then you got to clean up the dishes after you eat. So you only get, 5-10 minutes of enjoyment of actually eating the food. So it's so much endeavor for just this tiny little bit of benefit. Whereas in the spiritual world, there's this thing called a desire tree, where you could literally go up to it and be like, hey, yo, Mr. Desire Tree, Haribo, can I please get 50 pounds of rice steamed? Can I get a whole bunch of dal? I want gulab jamun for dessert.
For Krishna.
For Krishna. Yeah, we want this big feast. Just put it on the table so that we can offer it to the Lord, and we'll talk Krishna Katha over the meal. You don't need to work the 8 hours anymore. You don't need to cook the food. You don't need to clean the dishes. Boom, it's right there on the table. All 50 of your relatives can come, and it's so perfectly made, so perfectly executed that no one could possibly complain, right? So it's just full of bliss.
I have something on the desire trees though. Is Kalakanta Das had told me that being in spiritual life, it gives you a preview of what it's like to be in the spiritual world, and I definitely feel like once I had put some energy into learning and memorizing and internalizing the Vanchakalpa prayer, like I've gotten little glimpses of that actually, coming to fruition. One quick one that I'll share is on the Govardhan Puja Day, or the Govardhan Hill celebration, that we were all required to make a preparation for the Govardhan Hill. And I had just, when I was asked what I wanted to give, I was like, strawberries. That was just what I had in my mind. Not to make anything with it, but just specifically, I felt like the Lord might like that. But I was very tied up. I was actually washing Kalakanta's car that day and putting all my time and energy into that service. And I didn't have time because there was a deadline, I think at like noon. And Nate walked by me and he said, hey, do you need anything from the store? And I was like, yeah, strawberries. And then I was like, I want 4 strawberries and 3 blueberries. Like I just, 4x'd it, 4x'd my manifestation. And he came back and he was like, I got them, but they're like $36. I was like, I don't care. It's for the Lord. It's a special day. And then he was like, well, actually, the temple even covered it. So all I had to do was just tell a devotee what I wanted to get for the Lord. And it was made possible, just like that. And so Nate is a bunch of culpa.
I had a similar experience with, wanting to do something nice for Krishna, and it takes away all your material desires, because just like Shruti's always like, oh, if you want to round up and just give a nice even donation of way more than you were planning on giving, that'd be great. Similarly, the Krishna Life devotees a few months ago, they were getting a bunch of new paintings for their temple, and so Mahotsaha Prabhu, he's one of the book distributors there, he calls me up one day. We're just talking and chatting. He's like, yeah, we're getting new paintings for the temple. Anything you can give would be more than appreciated. What do you think you can do? And I was like, I'm looking at my bank. God, think I could do 500. He's like, oh, that's great. That's amazing. How about 1,008? Just okay, fine. So it's like sometimes you don't even think about all the material stuff that you're losing to gain the service of the Lord because you have that higher taste, because you understand I'm getting something superior. It's like I'm trading this terrible bench player for a starting all-star. It's like I know I'm getting something better, right? And it doesn't even cost me that much. Yes, Shruti.
My credit, I only asked you to round it to another $10,
Right.
and not twice the amount.
Yeah. There's a story that Jaga Purushadas in North Carolina said one time how these devotees, I forget where they were, but they were really outgoing devotees that were big on book distribution on Sankirtan. And so they got this huge treasure chest full of money together from all the books they distributed. It was about $108,000 they were able to amass, because 108, auspicious number. They wanted to get that for Srila Prabhupada, and they presented it to Srila Prabhupada. He's like, this is very good, but 109,000 would have been better. So it's like, you can always do more for the Lord. But in the spirit of being engaged in the service of the Lord with all of our senses and all of our activities, I would like to have some time to get everybody involved. So I need, by a show of hands, 3 people who are fans of the theatrical, the dramatic, who would like to enact a little drama. Need 3 volunteers. 1 for playing Kailash, who would like to play Kailash.
I have to know it.
You do not have to know it. All right, Nate's Kailash, who would like to play Narada Muni? Bruce would be Narada Muni. Do you want to play the narrator? Okay, fine. Pramamrita will be the
Look
narrator.
at that beautiful picture of Narada Muni on the left. It's preaching to the universe.
So the 3 people that are involved, if you want to stand up so you can act it out better, feel free. Use your whole body and mind and senses. This is for you. You know exactly what to say. All right, so Nate is Kailash, Bruce is Narada Muni, and Pramamrita is Take it away.
Kailash! This is the title. The following drama will help us to understand how we change bodies from one body to another at the time of death, based on the desires in our minds. Once upon a time, there lived a person called Kailash, who was very unattached to his house and furniture. One day the sage, Narada, he was very attached to his house and furniture. One day the sage Narada Muni visited his house and offered him the best of boons.
Oh, Kailash, I'm going to paradise, the kingdom of God in Vaikuntha. I will take you along with me to that wonderful place. Come fast, let's go.
Sorry, sir, I have no time. My children are very young. I have to take care of them. Maybe later.
Several years later, Narada returned to him.
Kailash, are you ready now?
Sorry, sir, I still have no time. I have many grandchildren to take care of. Also, at home, they need my guidance and advice, and I cannot come now.
When Narada returned after many years, he learned that Kailash had passed away. While leaving, he noticed a dog barking loudly at the doorway.
Please listen, sir. My sons are very careless with the wealth that I have acquired. I have therefore become a dog to protect them from that wealth from the thieves. Thus, I cannot go with you now.
Feeling very sorry for the attached Kailash, Narada went away. After many years, when Narada returned, he learned that the dog had died. Thinking sadly that Kailash must have gone to some unknown body, Narada left through the backyard. When he was walking behind the house in the paddy field, a snake approached him, hissing loudly.
Oh, Narda, it's Kailash here. I'm ready. I'm Kailash here.
What are you doing here in a snake's body, Kailash? Don't you want to come with me now? Even now, it's not too late. Now I am happy that my sons have put all the money in a bank, but they are so lazy that they wake up very late every morning. By that time, all the grains in this paddy field are destroyed by the animals, eaten by the birds, and stolen by the neighbors. I have therefore become a snake to protect the go round and round and protect the grains. I'm very, very busy. I'm sorry, sir, I cannot come with you now.
Seeing the pitiable condition of Kailash, Narada Muni clapped his hands loudly, called the sons of Kailash, and showed them the large snake living in their field. Immediately, the sons of Kailash started hitting the snake with sticks.
Shh, I am your father. I am protecting your paddy fields for your sake only. Why are you killing me?
But the more he hissed, the more his sons hit him, till he finally died.
So this story, it continues on in the yoga. Supreme person says, what can we learn from this story? Just as a doctor sometimes gives pain to a diseased patient during an operation, similarly, Narada Muni ordered the snake Kailash to be killed. The pain in the operation is for the benefit of the patient. The patient does not complain to the police for the pain. Rather, he pays the doctor a big fee for giving him that pain. Similarly, Kailash, while dying, remembered the mercy of the great sage Narada Muni, and in his next life, he became a great devotee by Narada's grace. Depending on the desires in the mind, one performs actions in this world, and material nature provides him with a suitable body in the next life. For example, if someone likes to sleep too much, nature gives him the body. She should go to Nitaiki. If someone likes to sleep too much, nature gives him the body of a polar bear or a frog to hibernate for 6 months without disturbance. If someone likes to eat flesh and drink blood, nature gives him the body of a tiger, a fox, etc. If someone likes to swim too much, nature gives him the body of a fish to continuously swim. If someone likes to wear less clothes on the body, and others who like to see this are given the bodies of trees to remain naked in all seasons. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Hopefully, we're training our ears and our eyes in this class by understanding if we're engaging in if we're engaging in activities just for the senses, not very good fortune will await us. There will be consequences. Whereas if we're engaged in the service of the Lord, we go back to Vaikuntha with Narada Muni and all the pure devotees of the Lord. So there's one more engagement I'd like us to all, or at least one person to be involved in, someone who is a fan of poetics or who is poetical. If they'd like to read this poem here,
I'll read it.
Welcome to do so. All right, go ahead, Joe Nathan.
The world is a searching sestra, looking for this, looking for that. Find Krishna and end the search. The heart chants a mantra, lub dub, lub dub. But one fine day the heart will say, Radhe, Radhe. When you are humble, surrendered, and true, Krishna's grace comes to you like a shower from the blue. The materialist sees with his eyes, the devotee sees with his ears by hearing from helpful seers. Offer every moment in sacrifice to Krishna by always chanting his holy name. Hare Krishna. A sadhaka's motto. Soul first, body second. Billions of lives pass. Body first, soul last. Now Guru's orders first and mind's orders last. Listen to mine, take 1,000,000 births. Listen to Guru, get free in one.
So pretty, but this is yeah, Mahaniti Swan. It's in a book, the 108 Sweet Notes. So another nice poem, just to engage the senses in glorifying the Lord. Hopefully the point has been made clear that if one wants to get out of the material world, one has to become Krishna conscious, and one can become Krishna conscious at any point in time, at any time of day, anywhere, just by following any one of these activities. It's stated elsewhere in the Bhagavatam. There's 9 different examples of different individuals who became perfected living beings, perfected entities, by practicing just one of these methods. But we can practice one of them, we can practice all of them, and we will get the result. Just keep in mind, it's like going to the gym. If you do one bicep curl, you're not going to be yoked, and everyone's going to be checking out how ripped you are after one bicep curl. You have to keep going, keep submitting yourself to that so-called pain of that hard work, that austerity, so that over time you can become more and more strong in your spiritual practice. Now we know what the ultimate goal is, which is to go back to Vaikuntha, where life is eternal. There's no more birth, death, old age, and disease. So, unless Jonathan has more to add.
Sure. I actually have maybe a question I can offer everybody here is, if you were speaking with somebody who was interested in Krishna consciousness, but they didn't necessarily believe that they should engage in service to the Lord because of the reasons that are given in the Vedas, right? For liberation out of the cycle of birth and death, that they weren't understood on that yet. What else would you try? How else would you try to encourage them to engage in, chanting, hearing, listening, reading, and maybe washing dishes? It's because we're gonna need a dishwasher next semester. Go be. I'll be here. Tree Bunga's gone. Speaking of muscle, yeah, Tree Bunga will be gone. I'll be here.
I would tell them about some of the more peripheral benefits. We know that those are just side effects, basically. There are benefits. Like, for example, one of the things that I like is how chanting the mantra makes me fearless. And Prabhupada also answered once when he was asked, "How do you feel when you chant?" He said, I'm fearless. And I've experienced that. I have these very vivid memories of when I was maybe 15, 16 years old, walking in the center of the town where I lived, and just looking down at the pavement, at the sidewalk, which where do you guys see? And not making eye contact with people. But I think my actual personality is such that I really like making eye contact. So after becoming a devotee, there's none of that weird fear. As I said, this is not at all the most valuable thing we get from chanting. The most valuable thing is to go back to Godhead and have a real relationship with Krishna. But these other effects are real, and I would at least tell that to someone. Just, this is a form of meditation. It'll help you become more clear in your head, have confidence, etc.
That's wonderful, Gopi. So I also, from this report, had got one of my questions that I've asked a few different times is, what makes you a devotee? And what is a devotee? And it says right here that a devotee is someone who's 100% engaged in service to the Lord. So, Krishna House Ki Jai, that it's like all we have to do is make the leap out of whatever, your occupation was or your path was, and take on this Krishna House path. And like, if you're living here, serving here, eating here, attending classes, attending the kirtans, and engaged, like, you're a devotee, And so I guess then my other question I could ask for others to reflect on is, why are you engaging in service to the Lord? And there's definitely no right or wrong answer. But why does your heart lead you to want to serve the Lord every day?
I can start. Sure. I serve the Lord, one, because Prabhupada presented the philosophy of Bhagavatam in such a way that makes such rational, logical sense that I can't find another way to live life that would make more sense than it. Like since, eating with my hands, having started doing that, sitting on the floor, like all these things, I'm like, whoa, these are way better now that I've, gone. It's like working this really high level job and going back to a job that you worked in high school. It's like it's just not the same anymore. So that's one reason. And the other reason why I like to serve the Lord is because I know that I do have a lot of material desires and I can't just act like they're not there. But if I dovetail those desires with Krishna, not only will I be purifying myself of such material desires, but he may even grant those desires in a way that I can continue serving even better.
Wonderful. Well, looks like food's out, so maybe I'll just leave you guys with that question to think about today. It's a wonderful class. Thank you guys.
Good question. No. Yeah, any last minute comments or questions?
Yeah.
We're that good? We taught you everything? There's nothing
No, I
left
think
to know? All you're trying to do job.
I think everybody saw those chips and sour cream. And like it's time to wrap this thing up. Get some breakfast. Thank you guys so much for your engagement in the class and attendance and your time. And yeah, hope you guys take something away from it. And thank you again for the opportunity, Shruti, for asking me to co-host the Srimad Bhagavatam class. Hopefully I'll be able to do it again with Max. So
Thank you, Bruce. It was a nice class, a lot of insight and realizations. And this last thing, initially you said you're a dishwasher at Krishna House. I was thinking of that one time when this really well-educated professor came to Bhaktisiddhanta, and he had a question for Bhaktisiddhanta. And then he asked the disciples, I have a question for Bhaktisiddhanta when I talked to him. And the disciples said, Maharaj is busy, just wait now or later. But then the disciples, they were simple, they didn't know this is a big professor, big shot professor. They were like, oh, do you want to help us do dishes in the meantime? He said, sure. So I actually did the dishes. And then Bhaktisiddhanta was told, he's here, he has some questions. So Bhaktisiddhanta came and he asked him, what are your questions? I said, oh, it's all right. My questions got answered when I did my service.
Wow.
So,
whoa.
Glorious.
Haribol.
So can we pull up the Prasadam prayer?
Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Krishna House Ki.
Yeah.
Let's lift this food up. Holy praise with the tambour. Singing.
Mahaprasad.
Who can desire, fill all desires, just like the desire tree, and have compassion for all conditioned souls.
Mahaprasad ki jai. Oh yeah? Let's go. Thank you. You guys did great.
Ooh, what is that?
I got it. No, I got it. Sorry, it's can't take it. Don't let it take it. Let's see what's happening. No, that's
It's not overwhelming. Yeah, he's the one that told you about. God, I've never done the fighting part. I was still, this was still going. Yeah, those are all. Yeah, look, we do something that we like never happened. Your Rada was really good. I want to do it. That's far, way far. Yeah, but I do. And like realization skills class. Thank you. It was so good, guys. Did you have? What do you have? It's funny because the pictures are still there. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could tell the rest. Yeah. Oh, and I saw your message about the one thing on it. I guess. I know you watched it. In the class. Live. It's still good.